The heat from the oven hit my face like a physical slap, but it was my mother's voice through the phone speaker that made my skin prickle cold. Haley wants everything perfect tonight. Aesthetic, you know. And, well, you always have that smell on you. That yeast smell. Your hands are always stained. You look like a peasant, Abigail. I was pulling a tray of sourdough from the 400-degree oven, my forearms already marked with the constellation of burns that never quite healed. The metal edge of the tray bit into my palm through the towel. 4 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. The busiest hour at the Gilded Crumb, and my mother was calling to uninvite me from my own sister's engagement dinner. It just doesn't fit the old Boston vibe she's curating, she continued, her voice as casual as if she were discussing weather. You understand? The tray trembled in my grip. Sweat dripped down my temple, mixing with the flour dust that coated everything in my world. Behind me, the convection ovens hummed their familiar rhythm, the soundtrack of every dawn for the past 5 years. I watched a customer at the counter bite into one of my croissants, her eyes closing in genuine pleasure. That moment of connection, of feeding someone something real. That's what I lived for, but to my family, I was just the machine in the basement that kept the lights on. Okay, I whispered. The word tasted like ash. I understand. I hung up before she could say anything else. I set the tray down on the cooling rack and returned to the rhythm of the bakery, trying to push the conversation from my mind. My name is Abigail. I am 31, and I am a pastry chef. This is the story of how I finally stopped feeding people who were starving me. Before I tell you exactly how I made them regret that call, drop a comment and let me know what time it is where you are right now. I always wonder who's awake with me. The phone screen went dark in my flour-dusted hand. I stood there for a long moment, listening to Marcus, my sous chef, calling out orders. The bakery moved around me like a living thing, timers beeping, dough rising, customers laughing at small tables near the window. This place was mine. I had built it from nothing, from a food truck and a dream, and more student loans than I want to think about. What my family didn't know, what they had never bothered to learn, was that baking isn't romantic. People see the Instagram videos, the slow-motion flour clouds, the golden croissants steaming on marble counters. They don't see the 3 a.m. alarm, the burns that map your forearms like a war zone, the way your shoulders ache so deep it feels like your bones are grinding together. They don't see the $5,000 I transferred to my parents every single month for the past 5 years. My father, Brian, made some bad investments back in 2020. He lost a chunk of his retirement portfolio betting on cryptocurrency because his golf buddy said it was a sure thing. He never told anyone outside the family. Of course, that would ruin the image, the old Boston money image, the country club memberships, and the brownstone in Beacon Hill. So, I became the invisible wallet, the backup generator running in the basement while they entertained upstairs. When Haley needed a new camera because the old one didn't make her skin look dewy enough, I wrote the check. When the heating system in the brownstone needed replacing, I covered it. When my mother wanted to redecorate the living room because the old furniture didn't photograph well for Haley's lifestyle content, I made it happen. I told myself I was supporting the family. That's what you do, right? You take care of your people. But standing there in my bakery, staring at my reflection in the stainless steel prep table, I understood something for the first time. They loved the product. They despised the producer. They loved my money. They loved bragging about artisan bread from our daughter's bakery at their parties. They loved the security I provided, but they were ashamed of the work that made it possible. The sweat, the early mornings, the rough, scarred hands that actually created value. I was useful, not valuable. There's a difference. The next morning, the bell above my door didn't chime. It rattled, aggressive, entitled. The sound of people who think they own the place. I looked up from the laminating machine, my hands deep in cold butter and dough, to see my entire family storming into the shop. My father in his weekend blazer, my mother clutching her pearls like we were in some Victorian drama, and Haley, immaculate in cream cashmere, walking straight past me to check her reflection in the pastry case glass. Abigail, thank God. My mother was breathless, frantic. We have a crisis, No hello, no apology for yesterday. Just crisis. The caterer canceled, Haley announced to her own reflection, smoothing her hair. Family emergency, he said, totally unprofessional. Anyway, we need you to fix it. I wiped my hands slowly on my apron, watching them. Fix what? The desserts, obviously. Haley finally turned to look at me, her face tight with irritation. We need 5 dozen of your midnight cronuts, the ones with the gold leaf, and a 3-tier vanilla bean cake with raspberry filling, delivered to the venue by 4 p.m. I glanced at the clock, 10 in the morning. They wanted a 3-day process completed in 6 hours, and judging by the way my father was suddenly fascinated by my industrial mixer, avoiding my eyes completely, they wanted it for free. Look, Abby. My father stepped forward, trying to sound authoritative. We know it's short notice. But this is for your sister. Jonathan's business partners will be there. We need to make a good impression. We need the best. Haley was back to examining herself in the glass, adjusting her cashmere. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at what I could do for her image. I was just another prop in her carefully curated aesthetic. That's when I saw it clearly. She used people as mirrors. Everything in her life existed only to reflect her beauty, her status, her brand back at her. She didn't see me standing there. She just saw a crack in her reflection that needed fixing. But I had spent 5 years using my craft as a window, pouring my soul into this bakery to connect with people, to feed them, to offer them something real. I looked out. She looked in. We were fundamentally different species. I can't do it, I said. The silence was immediate and absolute. What do you mean you can't? My mother's voice climbed an octave. You have flour right there. Just make them. The dough for the cronuts takes 48 hours to rest, I said, keeping my voice even. The cake layers need to cool properly. It's physically impossible. You're just being selfish. Haley's face twisted into something ugly. You're punishing me because Mom uninvited you. God, you're so petty. It's my engagement, Abigail. You're going to ruin everything just because your feelings are hurt. I am not being petty, I said. I am being a baker. Physics doesn't care about your engagement party. My father slammed his hand on the prep table. A bowl of ganache jumped. Enough. You will figure this out. I don't care if you have to buy them from somewhere else and repackage them. You are going to fix this. Or, so help me God, Abigail. The bell chimed again, but this time the sound was different. Confident. Heavy. The kind of entrance that changes the air pressure. My family froze. They turned toward the door, their faces instantly rearranging into polished smiles. Standing in the doorway was a man in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my delivery van. Tall, salt and pepper hair, eyes that scanned the room with predatory precision. Jonathan, the billionaire hotel mogul. Haley's fiancé. Jonathan. Haley rushed toward him, her voice climbing into that high-pitched squeal she used in her videos. What are you doing here? You're not supposed to see me before the party. She reached for him, aiming for one of those picture-perfect embraces she posted constantly. He sidestepped her smoothly, not even slowing down. He walked right past my parents, past the display case, straight to the counter where I stood. He looked at me, not at the flour on my apron, not at the sweat on my forehead, into my eyes. Are you Abigail? His voice was deep, serious. I nodded, too surprised to speak. He exhaled, a sound of genuine relief. I have been trying to meet you for 6 months. I am Jonathan Reed. I own the Atlas Hotel Group. We exclusively contract with your bakery for our VIP suites. Your brioche is the only reason our Paris location has a 5-star breakfast rating. He glanced briefly at Haley, then back at me. When I heard your family was having a crisis with the caterer this morning, your father called my assistant looking for vendor recommendations. I realized this might be my only chance to finally meet you in person and find out why you have been ignoring my partnership offers. My mother made a choking sound. My father looked like someone had hit him with a brick. Haley stood frozen, her arms still half raised. You know her? Haley's voice trembled. Jonathan turned slowly as if he had forgotten she was there. Know her, Haley? This woman is a genius. I told you I only agreed to meet your family because I saw the last name and hoped you were related to the owner of the Gilded Crumb." He let the room go silent. Jonathan turned back to me, his expression shifting to confusion. "I sent you 5 emails, Abigail. My team sent contracts. We wanted to partner with you to open a flagship location in our new Tokyo hotel. Why didn't you respond? We thought you weren't interested." I frowned, wiping my hands again. "I never got any emails. I checked my inbox every night. I would never ignore an offer like that." He pulled out his phone, tapping the screen before turning it to face me. The email chain was there, but the reply address wasn't mine. It was forwarded to my father's personal email, the one he had set up when he helped me configure the domain 5 years ago. I looked up at Brian. He was pale, sweating. Jonathan followed my gaze, his eyes narrowing as he understood. "He intercepted them," I said quietly. "Dad has access to the server." My father backed up against the mixer, stammering. "I was protecting you, Abby. You're not ready for that kind of pressure." "Tokyo! It's too far. We need you here. Who would help your mother? Who would help Haley?" I was just trying to keep the family together. Jonathan let out a short, humorless laugh. "You blocked a multi-million-dollar partnership because you wanted her available to run errands." Haley grabbed Jonathan's arm desperately. "Babe, it doesn't matter. It was a misunderstanding. Look, we're here now. Abigail can just bake the pastries for tonight and we can talk business later. Family first, right?" Jonathan looked at her hand on his arm like it was something foreign. Then he looked at my parents, shrinking in the corner. Then at me. "I don't think there are going to be any pastries," he said. "Actually," I cut in, "there is something you should know about the pastries." My mother looked hopeful for half a second. "You have some in the back?" "No," I said. "The Midnight Cronuts sell out 3 months in advance. There's a waiting list. And the batch I made this morning, the ones you wanted, I already donated them." "Donated them?" Haley shrieked. "To who?" "To the women's shelter on 4th Street. I drop them off every Friday at 9 a.m. The cupboard is bare, Haley. There's nothing here for you. Not a crumb." Haley's face crumpled. The polished influencer mask finally slipped, revealing the spoiled child underneath. She screamed, not words, just a raw sound of frustration. "You're jealous!" she yelled, her face turning mottled red. "You've always been jealous of me. You're just a baker, Abigail. You play with flour while I build a brand. You're sabotaging my happiness because you can't stand that I'm winning. You're ugly, and you're bitter, and you're ruining my life." She was panting, chest heaving. My parents rushed to comfort her, shooting me looks of pure hatred. My father stepped forward like he was ready to physically force me to start baking. I looked at Jonathan. He was standing very still, watching Haley. His face was unreadable, carved granite. He was seeing the ugliness spill out of her, the entitlement, the cruelty, the complete lack of grace. Then he looked at me, standing calmly in my flour-dusted apron. I didn't say anything. I just let the silence stretch. Let her words hang in the air, echoing off the stainless steel and tile. When someone is destroying themselves, you don't interrupt. You don't give them fuel by fighting back. You become a mirror. You let them see exactly what they are. The quiet grew heavy, suffocating. Then I moved. I reached behind my neck and untied my apron. The fabric rustled as I pulled it over my head. I didn't throw it. I laid it on the counter and folded it corner to corner, edge to edge, perfectly square. I pulled the spare key from my pocket, the one my father had used to let himself in that morning, the one he used to invade my sanctuary whenever he needed something. I placed it on top of the folded apron. Click. Then I took out my phone. I opened my contacts. Mom block, Dad block, Haley block. I did it slowly, deliberately, holding the screen at an angle so they could see exactly what I was doing. "Abigail, what are you doing?" my mother whispered, the color draining from her face. "I am clocking out," I said quietly. "Marcus, you're in charge. Close up early today. Lock everything. Everyone gets paid for the full shift." "Yes, Chef," Marcus said, straightening up. I walked around the counter, past my father, who couldn't meet my eyes, past my mother, trembling as she realized she had just lost her ATM and her verbal punching bag. past Haley sobbing into her hands. I stopped in front of Jonathan. "I am going to get a coffee," I said. "You're welcome to join me." Jonathan didn't hesitate. He didn't look at Haley. He didn't say goodbye to the parents he had been trying to impress. He turned his back on all of them. "After you," he said. We walked out into the snowy Boston street. The bell chimed above us one last time. Behind us, the bakery smelled like burnt sugar and regret. Out here, the air was cold and clean. I took a deep breath, and for the first time in 5 years, I didn't feel their weight on my shoulders. I felt light. The fallout was quiet but devastating. Jonathan ended the engagement that same evening. He met Haley at a coffee shop downtown and told her directly that he couldn't marry someone whose cruelty toward family revealed a fundamental incompatibility of values. She tried to salvage it with tears and promises. But he had already made his decision. The breakup was final within an hour, and by the next morning, Haley was alone with a canceled engagement party and mounting debts. She tried to spin it on social media. She posted a tearful video about being blindsided, about how her jealous sister ruined her big day. But without Jonathan's money and connections, her content dried up. The venue sued her for the cancellation fees. And after months of legal back and forth, she was forced to settle for an amount that drained what little savings she had. The aesthetic she had cultivated crumbled because it was built on a foundation I had been paying for. Her followers realized her lifestyle was a facade. They moved on to the next shiny thing. My parents were left with a brownstone they couldn't afford and debts they couldn't pay. Without my monthly transfers, the heat was turned off in February. They had to downsize to a condo in the suburbs, miles away from the old Boston image they had coveted. They tried reaching out through cousins and aunts, sending messages about family unity and forgiveness. I never replied. I didn't need to. I had already said everything when I put that key on the counter. That was the last time I saw or spoke to any of them, and I have kept it that way. The relationship is permanently severed. No reconciliation, no exceptions. As for the Gilded Crumb in Boston, I made Marcus a full partner and signed over majority ownership to him 6 months after that day. He had earned it, and he continues to run it beautifully. I still receive a small percentage of profits, but the bakery is his now. It was time for me to build something new. A year passed quickly, filled with lawyers, contracts, and the organized chaos of building something from the ground up in a foreign country. I stood in front of a massive glass storefront in Tokyo. The sign above the door read, "The Gilded Crumb," in elegant gold lettering. Jonathan stood next to me, holding the ribbon-cutting scissors. We weren't a couple. We were partners. He respected my craft. I respected his vision. He looked at me and smiled, not with pity, but with the same reverence he had shown that day in the bakery. I looked around at the crowd. My staff handpicked and paid double the industry standard. The regulars who had flown in for the opening. The women from the shelter I now sponsored with a percentage of our global profits. This was my family. This was the table I had built. I picked up a fresh croissant from the tray. Warm, flaky, perfect. I took a bite and it tasted like freedom. If you're the one keeping the lights on for people who would leave you in the dark, listen to me. They will never hand you the switch. You have to turn it off yourself. It will be dark for a moment, yes, but then you will finally see the stars. Before you go, here is a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I have got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles. 0 cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.